Beneath Xandor's neon skies, where aliens barter secrets and sins, Leo Zane prowls, a human rogue with a grin that promises danger and delight. His restless heart craves a thrill until he locks eyes with Lyra, a Zarathian princess, her white hair flowing like starlight, her fur-clad curves a forbidden temptation. Her golden gaze burns with defiance and desire, whispering, "Save me and I'm yours." As mercenaries close in, their blades gleaming, will Leo ignite a cosmic fire with this untamed beauty? One wrong move, and the galaxy will burn. Strap in, this forbidden dance is about to explode. The stars burned cold and distant above the neon-lit sprawl of Xandor's Blackspire Market, a chaotic hub where every species in the galaxy seemed to collide in a riot of color, sound, and greed. Leo Zane, a human drifter with a grin sharp enough to cut steel, wove through the crowd, his dusty leather jacket blending into the shadows. His dark eyes gleamed with a restless hunger, not for credits or contraband, but for something to break the monotony of his aimless existence. He was no ordinary wanderer. Beneath the scruffy exterior, power thrummed in his veins, a secret he guarded as fiercely as his smirk. Humanity, after all, wasn't just another species in the galactic tapestry. They were the wild card, the spark that could ignite or unravel it all. A sudden pulse of energy rippled through the market, silencing the usual cacophony. Leo froze, his hand brushing the hilt of a concealed blade as his gaze locked onto the source. A woman, radiant and otherworldly, standing defiantly in the center of a makeshift arena. Her white hair cascaded like starlight over her fur-clad shoulders, her pale skin shimmering under the flickering market lights. Pointed, elfin ears peeked through her locks, and her curves, barely contained by the sleek furs, drew more than a few stares. But it was her eyes, molten gold, blazing with defiance, that hooked Leo's attention. This was no ordinary alien. This was Lyra, a fugitive princess of Zarathia, and the air around her crackled with danger. "Step aside, filth!" a guttural voice bellowed. A hulking, four-armed mercenary loomed over her, his scales glinting like oil under the neon glow. His cronies, a mix of tentacled brutes and cyber-augmented thugs, formed a menacing circle around Lyra and a small figure clinging to her side. A child, no older than 6, with the same ethereal features. The crowd parted, sensing blood in the air. "The Emperor wants you back, princess. Dead or alive doesn't matter to us." Lyra's chin lifted, her voice steady despite the odds. "You'll have to kill me, Varkis. Zarathia kneels to no tyrant." Her words were a blade, sharp and unyielding, but the tremor in her daughter's grip betrayed her fear. The child, Mira, pressed closer, her tiny hands clutching her mother's furs. Leo's lips curled into a reckless grin. Finally, he thought, something worth getting out of bed for. He sauntered forward, hands stuffed in his pockets, feigning nonchalance. "Hey, big guy," he called, his voice cutting through the tension like a plasma torch. "You ever consider picking on someone your own size? Or is bullying ladies and kids more your speed?" The mercenary Varkis spun around, his beady eyes narrowing at the human. "Get lost, scavenger," he snarled, spitting a glob of greenish phlegm at Leo's boots. "This ain't your fight." "Oh, but it is," Leo said, his tone light but his eyes glinting with something dangerous. "See, I've got this bad habit of sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, and I'm betting I can take you and your goons down faster than you can say intergalactic arrest warrant." The crowd erupted in laughter, assuming Leo was some drunken fool. Even Lyra raised an eyebrow, her golden eyes flicking over him with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Varkis sneered, cracking his knuckles. "You got a death wish." "Human?" Leo's grin widened. "Nah, just bored. 3 seconds, big guy, that's all I need." Before Varkis could respond, Leo moved, a blur of motion too fast for the eye to track. His fist connected with the mercenary's jaw, sending him staggering back. The crowd gasped as Leo spun, dodging a tentacle swipe from one goon and delivering a kick that sent another crashing into a stall of glowing fruits. In exactly 3 seconds, the mercenaries lay groaning on the ground, their weapons scattered like toys. The market fell silent, save for the hum of distant hovercarts. Lyra stared, her composure cracking. "Who are you?" she whispered, clutching Mira tighter. Leo dusted off his hands, tossing a spiky fruit to a stunned vendor. "Just a guy looking for a thrill," he said, taking a bite and grimacing at the bitter taste. "Name's Leo, and you, princess, look like you could use a hand." Lyra's eyes narrowed, assessing him. "I don't need charity," she said, her voice regal but strained. "But I do need protection, for her." She glanced at Mira, whose wide eyes sparkled with awe at the human who just dismantled a squad of mercenaries. Leo chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. "Protection, huh? What's in it for me? I don't do easy gigs." Lyra hesitated, then stepped closer, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. Name your price, human. Credits, power, or perhaps something more personal. Her golden eyes locked onto his, a challenge and a promise wrapped in one. Leo's laugh echoed through the market. Oh, princess, you're barking up the wrong tree. I don't do personal unless it comes with a side of chaos. But, he leaned in, his voice low and teasing, keep me entertained and I might just stick around. Before Lyra could respond, a deafening siren split the air. Red lights flashed as a squadron of Imperial drones descended, their mechanical voices booming. By order of the Galactic Emperor, surrender the fugitive Lyra of Zarathia and her offspring. Leo cracked his knuckles, his grin turning feral. Well, princess, looks like the party's just getting started. You in? Lyra's lips twitched, a spark of defiance reigniting in her eyes. For Mira, she said, nodding. Lead the way, human. The chaos erupted faster than a supernova. Leo grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her and Mira through the panicked crowd as drones fired plasma bolts that scorched the air. Stalls exploded into clouds of sparks and debris, and the market's neon lights flickered wildly. Leo moved like a storm, his every step calculated yet reckless, weaving through the chaos with an ease that bordered on supernatural. He scooped Mira onto his shoulders, winking at her as she squealed in delight. Hold on, kiddo, he said, ducking a blast that singed his jacket. This is gonna be one hell of a ride. Lyra ran beside him, her fur-clad form a blur of grace and fury. She drew a sleek, curved dagger from her belt, slashing a drone that got too close. You're insane, she shouted, but there was a hint of a smile in her voice. Guilty as charged, Leo called back, vaulting over a collapsed stall. He spotted a sleek silver speeder parked at the edge of the market, a smuggler's ride, no doubt. There's our ticket out. They dove for the speeder, Leo hot-wiring it in seconds while Lyra shielded Mira. The engines roared to life, and they shot into the sky, leaving the drones scrambling to pursue. The Blackspire market shrank below them, a kaleidoscope of chaos fading into the distance. As they soared through Xandor's crimson skies, Lyra leaned closer, her breath warm against Leo's ear. You're not what I expected, human, she said, her voice a mix of suspicion and intrigue. Why risk your life for strangers? Leo glanced at her, his grin softening. Let's just say I've got a soft spot for underdogs. And you, princess, are one hell of an underdog. Mira giggled from the back, clinging to Leo's jacket. You're funny, mister. Leo, are you a superhero? Leo chuckled, ruffling her hair. Nah, kid. Just a guy who hates bullies. Now, buckle up, we've got an Imperial blockade to crash. The speeder screamed toward the horizon, where the glint of Imperial cruisers loomed like predators in the void. Leo's heart raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of a challenge he hadn't felt in years. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for sure. This princess and her kid were about to turn his life upside down, and he couldn't wait to see how. The speeder tore through Xandor's blood-red atmosphere, its engines screaming as it wove between jagged spires of obsidian rock that jutted like teeth from the planet's surface. Leo Zane's fingers danced over the controls, his grin as sharp as ever, though his dark eyes flicked to the rearview display where Imperial drones swarmed like angry hornets. The sleek silver craft vibrated under the strain, but Leo handled it with the ease of a man born to defy gravity and common sense. Lyra sat beside him, her white hair whipping in the turbulence, her golden eyes locked on the horizon where the ominous silhouettes of Imperial cruisers grew larger. Mira, strapped into the back, clutched a glowing crystal pendant, her small face alight with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Leo, they're gaining. Lyra's voice was taut, but there was a fire in it that made Leo's pulse quicken. Her fur-clad form leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his as she scanned the display. The heat of her proximity sent a jolt through him, unexpected and electric. He didn't let it show, but damn, this princess was trouble in all the best ways. Relax, princess, Leo said, his tone teasing despite the chaos. I've outrun worse than a few tin cans with attitude. He yanked the controls, sending the speeder into a dizzying spiral that dodged a salvo of plasma bolts. The sky lit up with streaks of violet fire, and Mira let out a delighted squeal, as if this were a carnival ride instead of a life-or-death chase. Lyra's lips parted, her breath catching as she gripped the armrest. You call this outrunning? We're one wrong move from being space dust. Leo shot her a sidelong glance, his grin widening. Trust me, Blue, I'm at my best when the odds are stupid. His fingers flicked a switch, and the speeder's cloaking module hummed to life, bending light around them. The drones faltered, their sensors scrambling, and for a moment the trio vanished into the crimson haze. The sudden quiet was deafening. Lyra's chest rose and fell rapidly, her golden eyes searching Leo's face. You're either a genius or completely unhinged, she murmured, her voice low and husky, sending a shiver down his spine. I'm not sure which is more dangerous. Leo chuckled, leaning back in the pilot's seat, one hand still on the controls. Why not both? Keeps things interesting. His gaze lingered on her, taking in the way her furs clung to her curves, the way her pointed ears twitched with every distant explosion. She was a vision, regal, fierce, and just a little undone by the chaos. He liked her that way. Mira piped up from the back, breaking the tension. Mister, Leo, are we invisible now, like magic? Her wide eyes sparkled, and she clutched her pendant tighter, as if it held the secret to their survival. Something like that, kiddo, Leo said, ruffling her hair with his free hand. Just don't tell the bad guys, okay? It's our little secret. Lyra's expression softened as she watched him with Mira, but her voice remained sharp. This isn't a game, Leo. The Empire won't stop. They'll burn entire systems to find us. Her fingers brushed the hilt of her dagger, a reminder that she wasn't just a damsel in distress. I need to know you're not just playing hero for the thrill. Leo's grin faded just for a moment. He met her gaze, his dark eyes steady. I'm here, aren't I? That's gotta count for something. He didn't say more, but the weight of his words hung between them, a promise wrapped in bravado. The speeder's cloaking held as they skimmed low over a canyon, its walls glowing with bioluminescent moss that cast eerie shadows across their faces. The Imperial cruisers loomed above, their searchlights slicing through the haze like knives. Leo's jaw tightened as he spotted a narrow crevice ahead, a risky shortcut, but their only shot at losing the pursuit. Hold on tight, he said, his voice low and urgent. This is gonna get bumpy. He gunned the engines, and the speeder dove into the crevice, walls closing in so tight they could almost feel the rock scraping the hull. Lyra's hand shot out, gripping Leo's arm, her nails digging into his jacket. The contact was fleeting but searing, and Leo's heart kicked against his ribs. Easy, princess, he said, though his own pulse was anything but steady. I've got this. The crevice twisted and narrowed, forcing Leo to weave with precision that bordered on miraculous. Sparks flew as the speeder grazed a jagged outcrop, and Mira gasped, clutching her pendant like a lifeline. Lyra's breath hitched, her body pressed closer to Leo's in the cramped cockpit. The air between them crackled, charged with something more than just adrenaline. Her scent, wild and faintly sweet, like alien blossoms, filled the small space, and Leo had to force himself to focus on the controls. They burst out of the crevice into a vast underground cavern, its ceiling glittering with crystalline stalactites that refracted the speeder's lights into a kaleidoscope of colors. For a moment, the beauty of it stole their breath. Lyra's grip on Leo's arm loosened, but she didn't pull away. This place, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. It's like the heart of Zarathia. Leo glanced at her, caught off guard by the raw emotion in her eyes. Yeah, well, don't get too cozy, he said, his tone lighter than he felt. We're not out of the woods yet. As if on cue, a low rumble shook the cavern. The Imperial drones had found them, their sensors piercing the cloaking field. A swarm of sleek, black machines poured through the crevice, their red optics glowing like malevolent stars. Leo cursed under his breath, flipping switches to reroute power to the speeder's weapons. Guess stealth's off the table. Time to dance. The cavern erupted into chaos as Leo spun the speeder into a barrel roll, dodging a barrage of plasma fire. Lyra drew her dagger, its blade humming with energy, and leaned out the side hatch, slashing at a drone that got too close. The machine sparked and plummeted, crashing into the cavern floor in a shower of debris. Not bad, princess, Leo called, his voice laced with admiration. You've got some moves. Lyra's lips curved into a fierce smile, her white hair glowing in the crystal light. You have no idea, human. She moved with a grace that was almost hypnotic, her body a blur as she deflected another drone's attack. The sight of her wild, untamed, and deadly stirred something deep in Leo, a heat he hadn't felt in years. Mira cheered from the back, her fear forgotten. Go, mommy, go, mister. Leo. Her voice was a bright spark in the chaos, and Leo couldn't help but laugh, even as he sent the speeder into a dizzying climb to avoid a collapsing stalactite. The drones were relentless, their numbers growing as more poured into the cavern. Leo's hands moved like lightning, firing precise shots that took out 2 drones with one blast. But the odds were shifting, and he knew it. We need a way out, he muttered, scanning the cavern for an exit. His eyes locked onto a faint glow at the far end, a tunnel, barely wide enough for the speeder. Lyra, strap in, he said, his voice tight with focus. This is gonna be tight. She slid back into her seat, her body brushing against his as she buckled up. The contact sent a spark through him, and he caught her gaze, those golden eyes, burning with a mix of defiance and something softer, something that made his chest ache. Don't get us killed, she said, but her tone was almost teasing, a challenge wrapped in silk. No promises, Leo shot back, his grin returning as he pushed the speeder to its limits. The tunnel loomed ahead, its walls pulsing with strange, organic light. The drones were right on their tail, their weapons charging for a final strike. Leo's fingers flew over the controls, rerouting every ounce of power to the engines. The speeder shot forward, the tunnel walls blurring into a streak of color. They burst out into open sky, the crimson haze of Xandor swallowing them once more. The drones didn't follow, either destroyed in the cavern or unable to navigate the tunnel. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the engines and the ragged breathing of the trio. Leo eased back in his seat, his heart still pounding, not just from the chase but from the woman beside him. Lyra's hand rested on his arm again, lingering this time. "You're reckless," she said, her voice low, almost a purr, "but I'm starting to think that's not such a bad thing." Leo turned to her, his grin softening into something more genuine. "Stick with me, Blue, and you'll see reckless is just the start." His eyes held hers, the air between them thick with unspoken possibilities. Her lips parted as if she might say something, but then Mira's voice broke the spell. "Look, Mr. Leo, stars." The little girl pointed out the viewport, where the crimson sky gave way to a glittering expanse of space. The Imperial cruisers were still out there, but for now they were free. Leo chuckled, ruffling Mira's hair. "You got it, kid. Let's find some stars to chase." He glanced at Lyra, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her, and maybe a few other things, too. Lyra's cheeks flushed a faint silver, but she didn't look away. "Don't get too cocky, human," she said, her smile a mix of challenge and promise. "You haven't seen what I'm capable of yet." The speeder soared into the void, the stars stretching out before them like a promise of chaos and wonder. Leo didn't know where this path would lead, but with Lyra's fire and Mira's laughter lighting the way, he was ready for anything. The speeder hummed through the void, a silver speck against the infinite canvas of stars. Leo Zane leaned back in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls, but his mind was anything but calm. The crimson haze of Xandor had faded behind them, replaced by the cold, glittering expanse of space, where the Imperial cruiser's distant lights pulsed like predators stalking their prey. Lyra sat beside him, her white hair catching the starlight, her golden eyes fixed on the viewport with a mix of resolve and unease. Her fur-clad form was a quiet storm, her presence filling the cramped cockpit with a tension that made Leo's skin prickle. Mira, nestled in the back, clutched her glowing crystal pendant, her soft hums a fragile thread of innocence in the growing darkness. "Stars are pretty, huh, kid?" Leo said, glancing at Mira through the rearview display. His voice was light, but his eyes flicked to the sensor panel, where red blips multiplied like a spreading infection. The Empire wasn't giving up, not after they'd slipped through the drone's grasp in Xandor's caverns. Mira nodded, her small face glowing with wonder. "They're like fireflies, mister. Leo, do they ever go out?" "Not these ones," Leo replied, his grin masking the knot in his chest. "But they've got a nasty habit of chasing us." He caught Lyra's gaze, her lips parting as if to speak, but a sudden jolt rocked the speeder. Alarms blared, red lights bathing the cockpit in an ominous glow. "Proximity alert." Lyra's voice was sharp, her hand flying to the co-pilot controls. "They found us, 3 cruisers, closing fast." Leo's grin turned feral, his fingers dancing over the console. "Guess they didn't like our little disappearing act. Buckle up, Blue, it's showtime." The speeder lurched as Leo pushed it into a spiraling dive, dodging a barrage of ion cannons from the nearest cruiser. The stars blurred into streaks of light, and Mira's giggles mixed with Lyra's sharp intake of breath. Leo's heart pounded, not from fear but from the electric thrill of danger, and the way Lyra's shoulder brushed his, her warmth a stark contrast to the cold void outside. Her scent, wild and intoxicating, filled the cockpit, and for a split second he imagined pulling her close, consequences be damned. "Focus, human," Lyra snapped, her voice cutting through his thoughts. She leaned over, her fingers brushing his as she adjusted the shields. The contact sent a spark through him, and he shot her a sidelong glance, catching the faint flush on her pale cheeks. "Focused as ever, princess," he said, his tone teasing but his eyes locked on the viewport. The cruisers were closing in, their massive hulls blotting out the stars. Leo's mind raced, calculating angles and odds. They couldn't outrun the Empire forever, not in a stolen smuggler's speeder. But then he saw it, a swirling vortex of light and shadow in the distance, a nebula pulsing with strange, unnatural energy. The Thaler Rift, a cosmic wound rumored to drive ships mad or make them legends. "Hold on to something," Leo said, his voice low and urgent. "We're going in." Lyra's eyes widened. "The Rift? Are you insane? No one's ever come out of there intact." Leo's grin was pure recklessness. First time for everything, Blue, unless you've got a better idea? She didn't. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded, her hand gripping his arm for a moment longer than necessary. For Mira, she whispered, her voice a mix of fear and trust that hit Leo harder than any plasma bolt. The speeder plunged into the Thaler rift and the universe unraveled. Colors bled into impossible hues, purples that screamed, blues that whispered secrets. The controls vibrated under Leo's hands, the speeder groaning as if caught in a living storm. Mira clung to her pendant, her eyes wide but fearless, while Lyra's breath came in shallow gasps, her body pressed close to Leo's in the chaos. The air crackled with energy, and Leo felt it, a pulse like a heartbeat, thrumming through the rift and into his bones. What is this place? Lyra's voice was barely audible over the roar of the engines, her golden eyes reflecting the nebula's eerie glow. No clue, Leo admitted, his voice tight as he wrestled the controls. But it's either our salvation or one hell of a grave. The cruisers followed, their ion cannons firing wildly, but the rift seemed to twist their shots, bending light and space in ways that defied physics. One cruiser veered off, its hull sparking as it vanished into a pocket of shadow. Another exploded in a silent bloom of fire, consumed by the rift's wrath. The third held its course, its commander's voice crackling through the comms. "Surrender, fugitive, there's no escape." Leo laughed, a wild, defiant sound. "Escape's overrated. I'm going for style." He flipped a switch, diverting power to the rear cannons, and fired a salvo that struck the cruiser's bridge. The massive ship listed, its lights flickering, but it didn't stop. Leo's grin faded. This wasn't just a chase anymore, it was a hunt. The speeder shuddered as a stray bolt grazed its hull, and Lyra's hand found Leo's, her fingers intertwining with his in a desperate grip. "We can't keep this up," she said, her voice low but fierce. "Mira deserves better than this." Leo's chest tightened at the mention of the girl. He glanced back at Mira, who was humming softly, her pendant glowing brighter than ever. "She's gonna get it," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I promise." Then it happened, a pulse of energy from the rift, stronger than before, washing over the speeder like a tidal wave. The controls went dead, the screens flickering with static. Leo cursed, slamming his fist against the console, but before he could try anything else, the nebula's light coalesced into a figure, a humanoid silhouette, shimmering and translucent, hovering in the cockpit. Lyra gasped, pulling Mira close while Leo's hand went to his blade, though he knew it was useless against this. "Who the hell are you?" Leo demanded, his voice cutting through the hum of the rift. The figure tilted its head, its form shifting between male and female, human and alien. "I am the echo of Thaler," it said, its voice a chorus of whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "You have entered my domain, Seekers, but for what purpose? Power, freedom, or something deeper?" Lyra's eyes narrowed, her dagger still in hand. "We seek survival, let us pass." The echo's laughter was like breaking glass. "Survival is fleeting. I offer more truth, desire, destiny, but there is a price." Its gaze shifted to Leo, and he felt it, a pull deep in his soul, as if the rift knew every secret he'd buried. "You, human, your heart burns with hunger. What do you seek?" Leo's jaw clenched. He wasn't about to spill his guts to some cosmic ghost. "I'm here for them," he said, nodding toward Lyra and Mira. "That's all you need to know." The echo's form shimmered, its eyes locking onto Lyra. "And you, daughter of Zarathia, your heart races for more than just escape. Speak it." Lyra's flush deepened, her gaze flicking to Leo before returning to the echo. "I want a future for my daughter," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "And I want to know if trust is worth the risk." The air grew heavy, the rift's pulse quickening. Leo felt Lyra's words like a punch, her vulnerability cutting through his bravado. He wanted to say something, anything, but the echo spoke first. "Very well. I offer a path through the rift, but only one of you may choose it. The others must face the storm." Leo's blood ran cold. "What kind of game is this?" he growled, but the echo was already fading, its laughter echoing in their minds. The speeder's controls flared back to life, and a new path appeared on the screen, a narrow corridor of light through the nebula's heart. But the cruiser was still behind them, its weapons charging for a final strike. "Leo," Lyra whispered, her hand still in his, her golden eyes searching his face. "What do we do?" He looked at her, then at Mira, who was staring at the glowing pendant as if it held all the answers. Something clicked in Leo's mind, something about the pendant, the rift, the echo. It wasn't just a chase anymore. There was a purpose here, something bigger than he'd bargained for. And for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of fear, not for himself, but for the two souls beside him. "Trust me," he said, his voice softer than before. He punched the controls, sending the speeder hurtling toward the corridor of light. The cruiser fired, a massive beam of energy tearing through the rift, but Leo was ready. He spun the speeder into a corkscrew, the beam missing by inches, and plunged into the corridor. The world dissolved into blinding light. Lyra's grip tightened, her breath warm against his neck as she leaned close, and Mira's pendant pulsed like a heartbeat. The cruiser's beam struck something behind them, an unseen barrier, and the explosion rocked the nebula, sending shockwaves through the speeder. Leo held the controls steady, his heart pounding, not just from the danger but from the woman beside him, her trust a weight he wasn't sure he deserved. They emerged on the other side of the rift, the stars steady once more. The cruiser was gone, consumed by the nebula's wrath, but the Echo's words lingered, a shadow over their victory. Leo glanced at Lyra, her face illuminated by the starlight, and felt that pull again, not just desire but something deeper, something that scared him more than any Imperial fleet. "Where are we?" Lyra asked, her voice soft, her hand still in his. Leo checked the nav panel, his brow furrowing. "No idea, Blue, but wherever it is, we're not done yet." He looked at Mira, whose pendant was now dark, and then back at Lyra, whose eyes held a question he wasn't ready to answer. The speeder drifted through the unknown, the stars a silent promise of what lay ahead. And in that moment, Leo knew one thing for certain: the storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. The speeder drifted through the uncharted void, a lone silver dart against a sea of unfamiliar stars. The Thaler Rift's blinding light had spat them out into a corner of the galaxy that felt wrong, as if the universe itself had forgotten this place. Leo Zane's hands rested on the controls, but his usual grin was tempered by a flicker of unease. The nav panel was useless, its star charts blank, and the silence in the cockpit was heavy, broken only by the soft hum of the engines and Mira's quiet humming as she toyed with her now-dark pendant. Lyra sat beside him, her white hair spilling over her fur-clad shoulders, her golden eyes scanning the darkness with a mix of wariness and something softer, something that made Leo's chest tighten every time she looked his way. "Well, Blue," Leo said, breaking the silence with a forced lightness, "welcome to nowhere, population, us. Any bright ideas on where to go next?" He leaned back, propping one boot on the console, trying to ignore the way her scent, wild and faintly sweet, still lingered in the air, stirring thoughts he wasn't ready to entertain. Lyra's lips twitched, but her voice was sharp. "Don't call me Blue, human, and if you hadn't flown us into that cursed rift, we wouldn't be lost in the middle of whatever this is." Her hand gestured at the viewport, where the stars seemed to pulse with an eerie rhythm, like a heartbeat in the void. Leo chuckled, undeterred. "Lost is just another word for adventure, princess. Besides, you trusted me to get us out of Xandor, and here we are, alive and kicking." He shot her a wink, but her glare could have melted Durasteel. "Alive for now," Lyra muttered, crossing her arms, which only drew Leo's attention to the way her furs hugged her curves. He caught himself staring and quickly looked away, cursing under his breath. "Get it together, Zane. She's a fugitive princess, not a date." Mira piped up from the back, her voice bright despite the tension. "Mister, Leo, are we gonna find a new home? Like in the stories Mommy tells me about Zarathia?" Her small hands clutched the pendant, its surface dull but oddly warm, as if it held a secret waiting to wake. Leo's grin softened. "Working on it, kiddo. Gotta find a planet that doesn't want to shoot us first." He glanced at Lyra, expecting a retort, but she was staring at the pendant, her expression unreadable. Before he could ask what was wrong, the speeder sensors pinged, a sharp, insistent sound that snapped them all to attention. Leo's eyes narrowed as he checked the display. "Well, damn," he said, his voice low. "Looks like we've got company." A massive ship materialized from the void, its hull a jagged patchwork of metal and crystal, unlike anything Leo had seen. It wasn't imperial, but it radiated menace, its surface crawling with faint, glowing runes. Lyra's breath hitched, her hand instinctively reaching for her dagger. "That's no cruiser," she whispered. "That's a Virelian harvester. Pirates. Scavengers of lost ships and lost souls." Leo raised an eyebrow. "Soul scavengers, that's a new one. Any chance they're just here for a friendly chat?" Lyra's glare was answer enough. "They'll strip this speeder to scrap and us along with it. We need to move now." Leo's fingers flew over the controls, but the speeder's engines sputtered, still taxed from the rift. "Come on, baby, don't fail me now," he muttered, coaxing the craft into a sluggish turn. The harvester loomed closer, its runes pulsing like a predator's eyes, and a tractor beam locked onto them, dragging the speeder toward its gaping maw. "Oh, hell no," Leo growled, slamming the console. "I'm not getting eaten by a space junkyard today." He rerouted power, risking a burnout, and the speeder lurched free, but not before a boarding claw latched onto the hull with a bone-rattling clang. The cockpit shook, and Mira yelped, clutching Lyra's arm. "Stay with me, Mira," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. She turned to Leo, her golden gaze fierce. Do something, human, or we're all dead. Leo's grin returned, reckless and wild. Oh, I'm doing something, all right. Hold on to your furs, princess. He flipped a switch and the speeder's emergency thrusters roared, sending them into a chaotic spin. The boarding claw held, but the sudden motion bought them seconds, enough for Leo to spot a derelict asteroid field nearby, littered with the husks of ancient ships. There's our playground, he said, steering toward the field. The harvester followed, its claw tightening, but Leo was in his element now, weaving through the debris with a precision that bordered on supernatural. Shattered hulls and twisted metal loomed like ghosts, and Leo used them as cover, dodging the harvester's plasma cannons. Sparks flew as a shot grazed the speeder, and Lyra's hand found Leo's again, her grip tight and warm. You're going to get us killed, she hissed, but her voice held a trace of something else, admiration, maybe, or something dangerously close to it. Or save us, Leo shot back, his eyes gleaming. Bet you a kiss I pull this off. Lyra's cheeks flushed silver, her mouth opening in shock. You're impossible, she snapped, but the corner of her lips twitched, betraying her amusement. Focus, or I'll throw you out the airlock myself. Mira giggled, breaking the tension. Mister, Leo's funny, mommy. He's like the knights in your stories. Leo laughed, even as he swerved to avoid a chunk of debris. See, the kid gets me. But the moment of levity shattered as the harvester's claw yanked them backward, the speeder groaning under the strain. A hatch on the pirate ship opened, and a swarm of drones poured out, small, vicious machines with blades that glinted like teeth. All right, new plan, Leo said, his voice tight. He unbuckled, grabbing a pulse rifle from the speeder's storage. Lyra, take the controls, keep us moving. She stared at him, incredulous. You're trusting me with this death trap. You're a princess, aren't you? Leo said, his grin infuriatingly charming. Time to act like one. He tossed her a wink and dove for the side hatch, rifle in hand. Lyra slid into the pilot's seat, her hands trembling but steady as she gripped the controls. Mira, stay low, she ordered, her voice firm. The speeder lurched as she took over, weaving through the asteroid field with a grace that surprised even her. Leo braced himself at the hatch, firing at the drones. Each shot was precise, turning the machines into showers of sparks, but there were too many. Leo, Lyra shouted, her voice carrying a note of panic. They're boarding. He glanced back, catching her eye, and for a moment the chaos faded. Her white hair glowed in the cockpit's dim light, her golden eyes burning with a mix of fear and fire. She was beautiful, fierce, and completely out of his league, but damn if he wasn't going to try. Keep flying, Blue, he called. I've got this. He leapt onto the speeder's hull, mag boots locking him in place as he faced the drones. They swarmed like locusts, their blades slicing the air, but Leo moved like a force of nature, his rifle blazing. One drone got too close, and he smashed it with the rifle's butt, sending it spinning into the void. But the harvester's claw tightened, and a larger figure emerged from the pirate ship, a Virelian warlord, its body a grotesque blend of flesh and machine, its eyes glowing with malice. Human, the warlord's voice boomed through a comm link, surrender the Zarathian and you may live. Leo laughed, a wild, defiant sound. Buddy, you picked the wrong day to mess with my road trip. He fired a pulse blast, but the warlord deflected it with a shimmering shield, advancing with terrifying speed. Inside, Lyra fought to keep the speeder steady, her heart pounding. Mira's pendant began to glow again, faintly at first, then brighter, casting strange shadows across the cockpit. Mommy, it's warm, Mira said, her voice trembling but excited. Lyra's eyes widened. Mira, hold it tight, don't let go. She didn't know why, but the pendant felt like their only hope. She pushed the speeder harder, dodging a collapsing asteroid, but the claw's grip was unrelenting. Leo, whatever you're doing, do it faster. Outside, Leo was a blur of motion, dodging the warlord's strikes while firing at the drones. But he was tiring, and the warlord knew it. Foolish human, it hissed, raising a clawed arm. You cannot win. Oh, I don't know, Leo panted, his grin never wavering. I'm pretty good at impossible. He spotted a fuel canister lodged in the nearby debris, its surface cracked and volatile. With a reckless shout, he fired and the canister exploded, engulfing the warlord and its drones in a fireball. The shockwave rocked the speeder, and the claw finally released, sending them tumbling through the asteroid field. Lyra wrestled the controls, stabilizing the craft as Leo scrambled back inside, his jacket singed and his face smudged with soot. Told you I'd pull it off, he said, collapsing into the co-pilot's seat, breathless but grinning. Lyra's glare was fierce, but her lips twitched. You're an idiot, she said, her voice softer than she meant. But thank you. Leo raised an eyebrow, his grin turning mischievous. Is that a thank you kiss I hear coming? Her flush deepened, and she shoved him playfully, hand lingering on his chest. Don't push your luck, human. but her golden eyes held his, and the air between them crackled with unspoken tension, the kind that made Leo's heart race for reasons beyond the fight. Mira's giggle broke the moment. "You're all red, Mommy," she said, pointing at Lyra's flushed cheeks. Lyra groaned, burying her face in her hands. "Mira, not now," she muttered, but Leo's laughter filled the cockpit, warm and infectious. "Kid's got a point." "Blue," he teased, dodging a swat from Lyra. "You're cute when you're embarrassed." The speeder drifted free of the asteroid field, the harvester's wreckage fading behind them, but the pendant's glow pulsed brighter and Lyra's expression grew serious. "This isn't over," she said, her voice low. "The pendant, it's connected to the rift, to us." Leo's grin faded, his eyes locking onto the glowing crystal. "Yeah, I'm starting to get that feeling. So what's next, Princess? Another fight, or are we finally getting a breather?" Lyra's hand brushed his, her touch deliberate this time. "With you around, Leo, I doubt we'll ever get a breather." Her smile was small but genuine, and for the first time, Leo felt something shift, a spark of trust, or maybe something more, binding them in the vast, uncertain void. The stars stretched out before them, and the speeder sailed on, carrying its unlikely crew toward a destiny none of them could yet see. The speeder glided through the uncharted void, its engines a low hum against the endless stretch of stars. The wreckage of the Violian harvester lay far behind, a fading memory in the asteroid field's ghostly embrace, but the air in the cockpit crackled with a new kind of tension. Leo Zane leaned back in the pilot's seat, his hands resting lightly on the controls, his dark eyes flicking between the nav panel and the woman beside him. Lyra's white hair shimmered in the dim starlight, her fur-clad form a silhouette of grace and fire, her golden eyes catching his with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Mira slept in the back, curled up with her pendant, its faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat, casting soft shadows across her peaceful face. The silence between Leo and Lyra was heavy, charged with the weight of their shared escape and the unspoken pull that had been building since Xandor. Leo cleared his throat, trying to break the spell. "Well, Blue, looks like we're finally out of the frying pan. Any guesses on what's next? Pirate kings? Space monsters? Or maybe just a nice, quiet picnic?" Lyra's lips curved into a small, reluctant smile, but her voice was low, almost a whisper. "With you, Leo, I doubt quiet is an option." Her fingers brushed the edge of the console, inches from his, and the air seemed to hum with possibility. Her scent, wild, sweet, and faintly alien, filled the cockpit, stirring something deep in Leo, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He leaned closer, his grin teasing but his eyes serious. "You say that like it's a bad thing, Princess. Admit it, you're starting to like the chaos." His voice was a low rumble, and he caught the way her breath hitched, her golden eyes darkening as they locked onto his. "Like is a strong word," she murmured, but her body shifted, her shoulder brushing his, the contact sending a spark through them both. "Your trouble, Leo Zane, the kind I'm not sure I can afford." He chuckled, the sound soft and intimate in the cramped space. "Trouble's my middle name, Blue, but I'm the kind of trouble that always delivers." His hand moved, almost on instinct, brushing a stray lock of her white hair behind her elfin ear. The touch was fleeting, but it lingered in the air, electric and undeniable. Lyra's cheeks flushed a faint silver, her lips parting as she held his gaze. "You're bold," she said, her voice a husky whisper that sent a shiver down his spine. "But boldness can be dangerous." "Danger's my favorite game," Leo replied, his grin softening into something warmer, more vulnerable. He didn't pull away, and neither did she. The cockpit felt smaller, the stars outside fading as the space between them shrank. Mira stirred in the back, murmuring in her sleep, and Lyra's eyes flicked to her daughter, breaking the moment. She pulled back slightly, her expression torn between desire and duty. "We can't," she said, her voice barely audible. "Not here, not now." Leo nodded, respecting the boundary but not hiding the heat in his eyes. "Fair enough, Princess, but I'm a patient guy sometimes." He leaned back, giving her space, though the air still thrummed with what might have been. The speeder's sensors pinged softly, pulling their attention to the nav panel. A faint signal blinked, a distress beacon emanating from a nearby planet shrouded in swirling violet clouds. Leo's brow furrowed. "Looks like someone's in trouble. Could be a trap, but..." Lyra's hand rested on his arm, her touch deliberate and warm. "We can't ignore it," she said, her voice firm but soft. "If there's a chance to help someone, we have to take it, for Mira's sake if nothing else." Leo glanced at her, his heart doing something unfamiliar at the sincerity in her eyes. "All right, Blue, let's play heroes again." He adjusted the course, steering toward the planet, its surface a mystery beneath the stormy veil. As they descended, the violet clouds parted to reveal a jagged landscape of crystalline spires and glowing rivers, like a fever dream carved from amethyst. The distress signal grew stronger, pinpointing a crashed ship nestled between two towering crystals. The wreck was Zarathian, sleek, elegant, and unmistakably like Lyra's people. Her breath caught, her hand tightening on Leo's arm. "That's one of ours," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "A scout ship. They might be survivors from Zarathia." Leo's jaw tightened. "Or it's a lure. Stay sharp, princess." He landed the speeder a safe distance away, the engines powering down with a soft whine. Mira stirred, rubbing her eyes, and Lyra scooped her up, holding her close. "Stay here, Mira," Lyra said, her voice gentle but firm. "Mister, Leo and I need to check something." Mira pouted, clutching her pendant. "But I want to help." Leo ruffled her hair, his grin returning. "You're our lookout, kiddo. If anything shiny shows up, you yell, okay?" Mira nodded, her face serious, and Leo couldn't help but feel a pang of affection for the kid. He and Lyra stepped out onto the planet's surface, the air thick with the scent of ozone and something sweeter, like blooming flowers in a storm. The ground crunched under their boots, the crystals casting prismatic light across their faces. Lyra's furs swayed as she moved, her body a graceful shadow against the glowing landscape. Leo's eyes lingered, and he caught himself again, shaking his head. "Focus, Zane. Save the daydreams for later." The crashed ship was a twisted ruin, its hull scorched but intact. As they approached, a figure stumbled from the wreckage, a Zarathian male, his white hair matted with blood, his eyes wild with desperation. "Lyra?" he gasped, his voice cracking. "Princess Lyra, is it you?" Lyra froze, her dagger half-drawn. "Kale," she whispered, recognition dawning. "You're alive." Kale staggered forward, collapsing to his knees. "The Empire, they ambushed us. I'm all that's left." His golden eyes, so like Lyra's, flicked to Leo, narrowing with suspicion. "Who's this?" Leo raised his hands, his grin easy but guarded. "Just the guy keeping your princess out of trouble. Name's Leo. You're welcome for the rescue." Kale's lip curled, but before he could retort, a low rumble shook the ground. The crystals around them pulsed, their light flaring, and a swarm of robotic sentinels emerged from the shadows, imperial traps left to guard the wreck. Their blades gleamed, and their optics locked onto the trio with mechanical precision. "Great," Leo muttered, grabbing his pulse rifle. "Just what we needed, a welcoming committee." Lyra pushed Kale behind her, her dagger humming with energy. "Stay back, Kale, we'll handle this." Her eyes met Leo's, a silent agreement passing between them. The air crackled with tension, not just from the fight but from the unspoken bond that had grown stronger with every shared danger. The sentinels attacked, their blades slicing through the air. Leo moved like a storm, his rifle blazing as he took down two machines in a single burst. Lyra was a whirlwind, her dagger carving arcs of light as she fought beside him, their movements almost synchronized. The crystals reflected their dance, casting them in a glow that felt almost alive. Leo caught glimpses of her, her hair flying, her body fluid and fierce, and the sight stirred something primal in him, a desire that burned hotter than the fight. "Nice moves, Blue," he called, dodging a sentinel's strike and blasting it to pieces. "You sure you're just a princess?" She shot him a look, her smile sharp and teasing. "Keep up, human, or I'll leave you in the dust." Kale watched, his expression a mix of awe and resentment. "Lyra, we need to go," he shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the chaos. One sentinel lunged for Lyra, its blade aimed at her back. Leo tackled her out of the way, their bodies crashing to the ground, his arms around her. For a moment, they were tangled together, her breath warm against his neck, her curves pressed against him in a way that made his head spin. Her golden eyes locked onto his, wide and unguarded, and the world seemed to pause. "You okay?" Leo asked, his voice rough, his hands still on her waist. Lyra nodded, her flush deepening. You didn't have to do that," she said, but her hands lingered on his chest, her touch sending heat through him. "Couldn't let you get scratched up," he said, his grin returning but softer, more intimate. "You're too pretty for scars." She rolled her eyes, but her smile was genuine and she didn't pull away. "You're incorrigible," she murmured, her voice a velvet caress that made his heart race. The moment shattered as Kale's shout cut through. "Lyra, behind you!" Another sentinel lunged, but Leo was faster, rolling to his feet and blasting it into sparks. Lyra sprang up, her dagger finishing off the last of the machines. The crystals dimmed, the danger passing, but the air between them still hummed with unspoken desire. Kale staggered over, his eyes flicking between them. "We need to leave," he said, his tone sharp. "The Empire will send more." Lyra nodded, but her gaze lingered on Leo, a question in her eyes. "He's right," she said, her voice soft. "But thank you, Leo, again." Leo shrugged, trying to play it cool despite the heat in his veins. "Just doing my job, Blue, keeping you and the kids safe." He glanced at Mira, who was peeking out of the speeder, her pendant glowing brighter than ever. As they helped Kale to the speeder, Lyra's hand brushed Leo's, deliberate and lingering. "You're more than that," she said, so quietly he almost missed it. Her golden eyes held his, promising something he wasn't sure he was ready for, but wanted more than anything. The speeder lifted off, carrying its growing crew into the violet-tinged void. The pendant's glow cast strange shadows, and Leo couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was about to take a turn none of them expected. The speeder hummed through the violet-tinged void, its engines a steady pulse against the eerie silence of the uncharted stars. Leo Zane leaned back in the pilot's seat, his dark eyes scanning the blank nav panel, his usual grin tempered by the weight of their growing crew. Lyra sat beside him, her white hair catching the faint glow of Mira's pendant, which pulsed brighter now, casting an otherworldly light across her fur-clad form. Her golden eyes flicked between Leo and Kale, the wounded Zerathian scout they'd rescued from the crystalline planet below. Kale slumped in the rear, his blood-matted hair and haunted expression a stark contrast to Mira's quiet curiosity as she clutched her glowing pendant, humming softly. The air in the cockpit was thick with unspoken tension, Lyra's lingering touch on Leo's hand, the heat of their earlier closeness, and Kale's wary glances, which carried a shadow of something unspoken. Leo broke the silence, his voice light but laced with caution. "All right, team, we've got a new passenger and a glowing rock that's acting like it's got a mind of its own. Any bets on what else this galaxy's gonna throw at us?" He glanced at Lyra, expecting her sharp wit, but her gaze was fixed on Kale, her expression a mix of relief and unease. "Kale," Lyra said softly, her voice carrying the weight of their shared past. "What happened to the others? The scout fleet? How did you survive?" Her hand rested on the console, inches from Leo's, and he felt that familiar spark, though it was tempered by the new dynamic Kale's presence introduced. Kale's golden eyes darkened, his voice rough. "The Empire ambushed us, Lyra. They knew our route. Someone betrayed us." His words hung heavy and Leo's gut twisted. Betrayal was a nasty word, one that cut deeper than any blade. Lyra's breath caught, her fingers tightening on the console. "Betrayed? Who would?" She stopped, her eyes flicking to Mira, who was still humming, oblivious to the growing storm in the cockpit. Leo's jaw clenched. "Sounds like you've got some enemies back home, Princess. Any names come to mind?" He kept his tone casual, but his hand hovered near his pulse rifle, his instincts screaming that Kale's story wasn't adding up. Before Lyra could answer, the speeder's sensors blared, a shrill warning that snapped them all to attention. Leo's eyes darted to the display, where a single, sleek vessel emerged from the void, a Zerathian ship, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian, its design too pristine to be anything but royal. "Well, damn," Leo muttered, his grin returning, though it was sharper now. "Looks like your family reunion just got an upgrade, Blue." Lyra's face paled, her golden eyes wide. "That's the Royal Guard," she whispered. "My father's elite. They shouldn't be here." Her voice trembled, not with fear but with something deeper doubt, maybe, or dread. Kale shifted, his expression unreadable. "They must have tracked the pendant," he said, his voice low. "It's a beacon, Lyra, always has been." Leo's blood ran cold. He glanced at Mira, who clutched the glowing crystal, its light now pulsing in sync with the approaching ship. "A beacon?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You want to explain that one, Kale? Because I'm not a fan of surprises." Lyra turned to Kale, her dagger half-drawn, her voice sharp as a blade. "Kale, what aren't you telling me?" Her fur-clad form was taut, every inch the princess ready to defend her daughter. Kale's eyes flicked to the floor, then back to Lyra, and in that moment the air shifted, heavy with the weight of truth. "The pendant," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It was never just a keepsake. It's a key, a link to the heart of Zerathia, a relic of unimaginable power. The Empire wants it, Lyra, and so does your father." Leo's heart kicked against his ribs, the pieces falling into place. "Hold up," he said, his grin gone, his hand now gripping the rifle. "You're saying we've been hauling around a cosmic nuke this whole time, and you knew?" His eyes locked onto Kale, who flinched but didn't look away. "I had no choice," Kale said, his voice cracking. "The Empire, they have my sister. They forced me to track you to lead them to the pendant. I didn't want this, Lyra, I swear." The cockpit went silent, save for Mira's soft hum, oblivious to the betrayal unfolding. Lyra's face was a mask of fury and pain, her golden eyes blazing as she stepped toward Kale, her dagger gleaming. "You led them to us," she said, her voice low and lethal. "You endangered my daughter." Leo moved instinctively, placing himself between Lyra and Kale, his rifle raised but not aimed yet. "Easy, Blue," he said, his voice steady but his mind racing. "He's not worth it, not yet." He glanced at the viewport, where the Zerathian ship was closing fast, its weapons systems glowing with intent. The twist hit like a plasma bolt. Kale, the wounded scout they'd saved, Wasson Curriculum Vitae, was no victim. He was a pawn, maybe even a traitor, and the pendant, Mira's innocent treasure, was a beacon drawing the Empire and the Zarathian royal guard straight to them. Leo's mind spun, the weight of the revelation crashing down. The pendant wasn't just glowing, it was calling, and they were caught in a cosmic trap. "Leo," Lyra said, her voice trembling with rage but also a plea. "What do we do?" Her hand brushed his arm, the touch grounding him, pulling him back from the edge of his own anger. Her golden eyes held his, and in them he saw not just a princess but a mother, a woman who trusted him to keep her daughter safe. He took a deep breath, his grin returning, though it was laced with steel. "First, we don't panic. Second, we don't let that fancy ship out there ruin our day." He turned to the controls, his fingers flying as he rerouted power to the shields. "Mira, kiddo, keep that pendant close, we're gonna need it." Mira nodded, her small face serious, the pendant's glow now a steady pulse. Leo glanced at Lyra, then at Kale, who sat rigid, his eyes downcast. "And you," Leo said, his voice low and dangerous. "You're gonna help us fix this, or I'll personally toss you into the nearest black hole." The Zarathian ship's comms crackled to life, a cold, regal voice cutting through the tension. "Princess Lyra of Zarathia, surrender the heart's key. By order of King Valther, you are commanded to return to your rightful place." Lyra's jaw tightened, her hand gripping Leo's arm, her touch warm and urgent. "My father," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "He wants the pendant to control Zarathia's future. He'll destroy anyone in his way, even me." Leo's heart pounded, not just from the threat but from the fire in Lyra's eyes, the way her touch anchored him. He'd faced pirates, drones, and cosmic storms, but this was personal. "All right, Blue," he said, his voice low, his grin defiant. "Let's show your old man we don't play by his rules." He punched the controls, and the speeder surged forward, diving toward a nearby nebula, its swirling gases a chaotic shield against the Royal Guard's sensors. The Zarathian ship fired, a lance of blue energy grazing the speeder's hull, sending sparks flying. Lyra braced herself, her body pressed close to Leo's in the cramped cockpit, her breath warm against his neck. The contact sent a jolt through him, a reminder of the heat between them, but now wasn't the time, not with a king's wrath bearing down. "Hold on," Leo shouted, spinning the speeder into a corkscrew to dodge another blast. Mira clutched her pendant, its glow now blinding, and Kale's voice broke through the chaos. "The pendant can activate the heart," he said, his words rushed. "It's a weapon, a shield, a power source, it's everything. If you can reach it before they do, you can stop them." Leo's eyes narrowed. "And why should we trust you now, pal?" He fired the speeder's rear cannons, a desperate shot that forced the Zarathian ship to veer, buying them seconds. Kale's face twisted with guilt. "Because I want to save my sister. And because I owe you, Lyra." Lyra's gaze softened, but only slightly. "If you're lying, Kale, I'll end you myself," she said, dagger still in hand, her voice a velvet blade. The nebula loomed closer, its tendrils of gas and light swallowing the speeder. The Royal Guard's ship followed, its weapons charging, but the nebula's interference scrambled their aim. Leo's hands were a blur, weaving through the gas clouds, the speeder groaning under the strain. Lyra's hand stayed on his arm, her touch a lifeline in the chaos, and Mira's pendant pulsed faster, as if guiding them to something or someone. The sensors pinged, revealing a hidden structure deep in the nebula. A massive, ancient platform, its surface etched with runes that matched the pendant's glow. "The heart of Zarathia," Lyra whispered, her voice a mix of awe and fear. "It's real." Leo's grin was reckless, his heart racing with the thrill of the chase and the fire of Lyra's touch. "Looks like we found the jackpot, Blue. Ready to steal it from your dad?" Her smile was small but fierce, her golden eyes locking onto his. "With you, Leo, I'm ready for anything." Her hand squeezed his, a promise of trust and something more, something that burned brighter than the stars. The speeder dove toward the platform, the Royal Guard's ship hot on their tail. The pendant's glow filled the cockpit, and Leo felt it, a surge of power, ancient and alive, calling them to a destiny that could save or destroy them all. The speeder plunged through the nebula's swirling tendrils, its hull groaning as it skimmed the edge of the ancient platform that loomed like a forgotten god in the void. The heart of Zarathia, a massive, rune-etched structure pulsing with the same eerie light as Mira's pendant, cast an ethereal glow across the cockpit. Leo Zane's hands gripped the controls, his dark eyes narrowed with focus, though his trademark grin flickered, betraying the storm of thoughts beneath. Lyra sat beside him, her white hair a cascade of starlight, her fur-clad form taut with tension as she clutched her dagger, her golden eyes flicking between the platform and Kale, the Zarathian scout whose betrayal had shaken her to her core. Mira huddled in the back, her small hands wrapped around the glowing pendant, its light now a beacon that seemed to call to the platform itself. Kale sat rigid, his blood-streaked face a mask of guilt, his silence louder than the Royal Guard ship closing in behind them. The Zarathian vessel's blue energy lances sliced through the nebula, missing the speeder by inches as Leo weaved with reckless precision. "Well, Blue," he said, his voice a mix of bravado and strain, "your dad's got a hell of a welcome wagon. Any chance he's just throwing us a surprise party?" He shot Lyra a sidelong glance, hoping to ease the tension, but her lips were a tight line, her gaze locked on the platform. "This is no party, Leo," she said, her voice low and edged with steel. "My father wants the heart to control Zarathia and beyond. If he gets it, Mira's future is forfeit." Her hand brushed his arm, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt through him, grounding him in the chaos. Her scent, wild, sweet, and achingly familiar, filled the cockpit, stirring a warmth he couldn't ignore even now. Leo's grin softened, his eyes meeting hers for a moment. "Then we beat him to it, Princess. No king's gonna outshine us today." He glanced at Mira, whose pendant pulsed brighter, its light casting strange shadows that seemed to dance with intent. "Kiddo, that glowy rock of yours is starting to look like the main event. Keep it safe, yeah." Mira nodded, her small face serious but fearless. "It's warm, mister, Leo, like it's talking to me." Her words sent a chill down Leo's spine, and he exchanged a look with Lyra, whose expression mirrored his unease. Before he could respond, Kale's voice cut through, low and urgent. "The pendant's linked to the heart's core. If you can get it inside the platform, you can activate it, turn it into a shield, a weapon, anything you need. But you have to trust me." Lyra spun on him, her dagger gleaming in the pendant's light. "Trust you?" Her voice was a venomous whisper, her golden eyes blazing. "You led my father's dogs to us, Kale. You endangered my daughter. Why should I believe a word you say?" Kale flinched, his hands raised in surrender. "I had no choice, Lyra. The Empire has my sister, my only family. I thought I could save her and you. I was wrong." His voice cracked, and for a moment, Leo saw something raw in his eyes, regret, maybe, or desperation. Leo's jaw tightened, his hand hovering near his pulse rifle. "You've got a funny way of showing loyalty, pal, but if you're lying, I'll make sure you regret it." He turned back to the controls, the platform now filling the viewport, its runes glowing with a rhythm that matched Mira's pendant. The Royal Guard ship fired again, a blast grazing the speeder's hull, sending sparks flying. "Leo!" Lyra's hand gripped his shoulder, her nails digging in. Her body pressed close in the cramped cockpit. The contact was electric, her warmth a stark contrast to the cold void outside, and Leo's heart raced, not just from the danger but from the fire in her touch. "We can't outrun them forever," she said, her voice urgent but laced with a trust that made his chest ache. "Never plan to, Blue," Leo said, his grin returning, reckless and wild. "Let's crash this party." He punched the controls, diving toward the platform's surface, where a massive, arched entryway glowed with runic light. The speeder shuddered as it entered, the air inside thick with an ancient energy that made Leo's skin prickle. The interior was a labyrinth of crystalline corridors, their walls pulsing with the same light as the pendant. Leo landed the speeder in a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows, its floor etched with runes that seemed to writhe like living things. Mira's pendant flared, illuminating the chamber, and a low hum filled the air, as if the platform itself were waking. Lyra helped Kale to his feet, her dagger still in hand, her eyes never leaving him. "You're coming with us," she said, her voice cold but steady. "If this is a trap, you'll be the first to pay." Kale nodded, his face pale but resolute. "I'll prove myself, Lyra, for you and for her." He glanced at Mira, who was staring at the pendant, her small hands trembling with its power. Leo slung his rifle over his shoulder, his grin masking the unease in his gut. "All right, team, let's not keep the cosmic glow stick waiting. Mira, you're our guide. Lead the way, kiddo." Mira hopped out of the speeder, her pendant casting a path of light through the chamber. Leo and Lyra followed, Kale trailing behind, his steps heavy with guilt. The corridors twisted and turned, the runes growing brighter with every step, and the air grew heavier, charged with an energy that felt alive. Lyra's hand brushed Leo's as they walked, her touch deliberate now, a silent anchor in the uncertainty. He caught her eye, and for a moment the drama of their situation faded, replaced by a warmth that made his heart skip. "You're staring," Lyra said, her voice teasing despite the tension, her lips curving into a small smile. Her white hair glowed in the runic light, her elfin ears twitching, and Leo couldn't help but think she looked like a goddess in this strange place. "Can you blame me?" He shot back, his grin mischievous. "You're making it real hard to focus, Blue." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "If we weren't dodging your dad's goons, I'd be asking for that kiss I'm owed." Lyra's cheeks flushed silver, and she swatted his arm, her touch lingering. "You're impossible," she said, but her smile betrayed her amusement, and the air between them crackled with a tension that was anything but professional. Mira's giggle broke the moment, her voice echoing in the chamber. "Mr. Leo likes you, Mommy," she said, her pendant glowing brighter as she skipped ahead, oblivious to the danger. Lyra groaned, burying her face in her hands. "Mira, please," she muttered, her flush deepening, and Leo's laughter filled the corridor, warm and infectious. "Kid's got a point," he teased, dodging another playful swat. "You're cute when you're flustered, princess." Before Lyra could retort, a tremor shook the platform and the runes flared red, a warning of something or someone approaching. Leo's grin vanished, his rifle snapping up as he scanned the shadows. "Heads up," he said, his voice low. "We've got company." A squad of Zarathian royal guards emerged from a side corridor, their armor gleaming, their energy lances drawn. Their leader, a towering figure with eyes like molten gold, stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "Princess Lyra, surrender the heart's key. Your father's patience is at an end." Lyra's dagger hummed, her stance defiant. "Tell my father he can't control me or the heart," she said, her voice ablade. She stepped closer to Leo, her shoulder brushing his, and he felt that spark again, a reminder of what he was fighting for. Leo raised his rifle, his grin returning, sharp and reckless. "You heard the lady. How about you take your shiny spears and go home?" He glanced at Lyra, his voice dropping. "Ready to dance, Blue?" Her smile was fierce, her golden eyes blazing. "Always human." They moved as one, Leo's rifle blazing, Lyra's dagger carving arcs of light. The guards were skilled, but Leo and Lyra were a storm, their movements synchronized, their trust unspoken but absolute. Kale fought beside them, his own blade flashing, his actions a desperate bid for redemption. The battle was chaos, the chamber echoing with the clash of energy and steel. Leo ducked a lance, blasting a guard into the wall, while Lyra spun, her dagger slicing through armor like paper. But the guards were relentless, and more poured in, their numbers overwhelming. Mira's pendant flared, its light blinding, and a pulse of energy swept through the chamber, knocking the guards back. "Mommy, it's hot," Mira cried, her voice trembling as she clutched the pendant. The runes on the floor pulsed in sync, and a hidden door slid open, revealing a glowing core, the heart of Zarathia itself. Lyra grabbed Mira, pulling her close, while Leo and Kale held the guards at bay. "Leo, we need to get to the core," Lyra shouted, her voice urgent. "It's our only chance." Leo nodded, his heart pounding, not just from the fight but from the fire in Lyra's eyes. "Go," he yelled, blasting another guard. "I'll cover you." Lyra hesitated, her hand finding his, her touch warm and fierce. "Don't you dare die, Leo Zane," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm not done with you yet." He grinned, his heart soaring despite the chaos. "Wouldn't dream of it, Blue." He pushed her toward the core, his rifle blazing. As the platform shook, with the weight of their destiny, the heart of Zarathia pulsed with a primal energy, its glowing core casting waves of light across the crystalline chamber, bathing Leo Zane, Lyra, Mira, and Kale in an ethereal glow. The platform trembled, the runes on its walls flaring as the royal guard's relentless assault echoed through the corridors. Leo stood firm, his pulse rifle blazing, holding back the armored Zarathians pouring into the chamber. Lyra clutched Mira close, her dagger gleaming, her white hair a cascade of starlight as she shielded her daughter from the chaos. Kale fought beside Leo, his blade flashing with a desperate fervor, his every move a plea for redemption. Mira's pendant burned brighter than ever, its light sinking with the heart's core, as if the two were one. The air crackled with power, danger, and something deeper, a bond forged in fire between a human drifter, a fugitive princess, and a child who held their fate in her small hands. "Leo." Lyra's voice cut through the din, sharp and urgent, her golden eyes locked on the glowing core. "We're running out of time. The heart, it's now or never." Her fur-clad form was a blur of grace as she deflected a guard's lance, her movements fluid despite the fear in her eyes. Leo's grin was reckless, his heart pounding with adrenaline and something more, the weight of Lyra's trust, the spark of her touch still lingering from their last moment. "Got it, Blue," he shouted, blasting another guard into the wall. "Get to the core, I'll keep these clowns busy." He glanced at Kale, his voice dropping to a growl. "You with us, or are you gonna pull another stunt?" Kale's face was grim, his blade dripping with energy residue. "I'm with you," he said, his voice steady despite the guilt in his eyes. "For Lyra, for Mira." He lunged at a guard, his strikes precise, proving his words with action. Lyra nodded, her gaze flicking to Leo, a silent promise passing between them. She scooped Mira into her arms and sprinted toward the core, the pendant's light guiding her like a beacon. The chamber shook, chunks of crystal falling from the ceiling as the royal guard's ship outside fired on the platform, its energy lances tearing through the structure. Leo and Kale fought back to back, a whirlwind of human grit and Zarathian skill, their movements a desperate dance against overwhelming odds. The core loomed before Lyra, a sphere of pure light suspended in a lattice of runes, its energy pulsing in time with Mira's pendant. Lyra set her daughter down, her hands trembling as she touched the glowing crystal. "Mira, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice soft but urgent, "you need to place the pendant in the core. It's the only way." Mira's small face was serious, her golden eyes wide but fearless. "Okay, Mommy," she said, stepping forward, the pendant blazing in her hands. The light enveloped her, and for a moment she seemed to glow, a tiny figure against the cosmic power of the heart. Leo glanced back, his heart lurching at the sight. "Kid, you're stealing my thunder," he called, his voice laced with humor despite the chaos. He blasted another guard, but the tide was turning, more Zarathians poured in, their leader's voice booming through the chamber. "Princess Lyra, this is your final warning," the royal guard captain shouted, his lance raised. "Surrender the heart, or we will bury you all." Lyra's eyes blazed, her dagger flashing as she stood protectively over Mira. "You'll have to go through me," she roared, her voice a mix of fury and defiance that made Leo's chest swell with pride and something deeper, something he wasn't ready to name. The pendant clicked into the core and the chamber erupted in light. A shockwave of energy swept through, knocking the guards back, their armor sparking as they collapsed. The platform stabilized, the runes glowing a steady, warm gold. Mira stepped back, her pendant now part of the core, its light merging with the heart's energy. The air hummed with power, and Lyra's breath caught, her hand reaching for Leo's as he and Kale fought their way to her side. "What just happened?" Leo panted, his rifle still raised, his eyes scanning the chamber for threats. The guards were down, but the platform's energy felt alive, as if it were watching them. Lyra's voice was a whisper, her golden eyes wide with awe. "The heart, it's awake." Mira activated it. She looked at her daughter, who was smiling, untouched by the chaos. "It's a shield now protecting us, but it's more than that, it's a new beginning." Kale's face softened, his guilt giving way to hope. "The heart can rebuild Zarathia," he said, his voice low. "It can free my sister, and the Empire's hold. Lyra, you can take it back, your throne, your people." Lyra's jaw tightened, her hand still in Leo's, her touch warm and grounding. "My father will never stop," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of her past. "He'll hunt us to the ends of the galaxy." Leo's grin returned, sharp and defiant. "Then we'll just have to outrun him, Blue, or outfight him. I'm game either way." He squeezed her hand, his heart racing at the fire in her eyes, the way she stood tall despite the odds. Before Lyra could respond, the chamber's walls shimmered and a holographic figure appeared, King Valthar, Lyra's father, his regal features cold and unyielding. His golden eyes, so like Lyra's, burned with a hunger for power. "Daughter," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you cannot wield the heart. It belongs to Zarathia, to me. Surrender, and I may spare your human pet and the traitor." Leo laughed, a wild, reckless sound. "Pet? Oh, you're gonna regret that one, old man." He stepped forward, his rifle lowered but his stance defiant. "Your daughter's worth 10 of you, and I'm betting she's about to prove it." Lyra's hand tightened on his, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Father, the heart isn't yours to control. It's Mira's now, her light, her future. I won't let you take it." She stepped closer to the core, her fur-clad form glowing in its light, her elfin ears twitching with resolve. Valthar's hologram flickered, his expression darkening. "You defy me, child? Then you'll face the consequences." The platform shook as the royal guard ship outside fired again, its energy lances tearing into the structure. The core pulsed, its shield holding, but cracks began to form in the chamber's walls. Leo's mind raced, his eyes flicking to the core, then to Lyra and Mira. "Blue, we need a plan fast," he said, his voice low and urgent. "That shield's not gonna hold forever." Lyra's gaze met his, her golden eyes filled with a fire that made his heart skip. "The heart can do more than shield," she said, her voice steady. "It can move the platform, take us anywhere. We just need to set a course." Kale stepped forward, his voice urgent. "There's a sanctuary world, Nethuria, beyond the Empire's reach. The heart can get us there, but we have to act now." Leo raised an eyebrow, his grin teasing despite the danger. "You sure you're not leading us into another trap, pal? Because I'm starting to think you're bad luck." Kale's lips twitched, a flicker of humor breaking through his guilt. "No traps this time, human. Just a chance to make things right." Lyra nodded, her hand still in Leo's, her touch a lifeline. "Nethuria," she said, her voice resolute. "Let's go home." Mira stepped forward, her small hand touching the core, its light enveloping her. "I can do it, Mommy," she said, her voice steady, and the chamber hummed as the heart responded, its energy surging through the platform. The runes glowed brighter, and the structure began to move, tearing free of the nebula's grasp and hurtling through space. The Royal Guard ship fired one last desperate salvo, but the Heart's shield held, deflecting the energy into the void. Valther's hologram flickered and vanished, his voice a fading echo of rage. Leo let out a whoop, his grin wide and triumphant. "That's my girl," he said, ruffling Mira's hair. "You just told a king to take a hike." Mira giggled, her pendant now a part of the core, its light a steady warmth. Lyra's smile was small but radiant, her hand still in Leo's, her golden eyes soft with something new, hope maybe, or something deeper. "You're not so bad yourself, human," she said, her voice a velvet caress that made his heart race. The platform emerged in Nethuria's orbit, a lush, vibrant world of emerald forests and shimmering seas, untouched by the Empire's shadow. The speeder docked in a verdant valley, and the trio, plus Kale, stepped out into a world that felt like a promise. The air was sweet, the sky a soft gold, and Mira ran ahead, her laughter echoing through the trees. Lyra turned to Leo, her hand still in his, her fur-clad form glowing in the sunlight. "We made it," she said, her voice soft but heavy with meaning. "Because of you?" Leo's grin softened, his heart doing something unfamiliar at the warmth in her eyes. "Nah, Blue, we did it together, you, me, the kid, and even our resident traitor." He nodded at Kale, who managed a sheepish smile. Kale stepped forward, his voice quiet. "I'll find my sister, Lyra, and I'll make this right, for Zerathia, for you." He bowed, a gesture of respect, and walked away, disappearing into the forest to begin his own journey. Lyra watched him go, then turned back to Leo, her golden eyes searching his. "What about you, Leo Zane?" she asked, her voice low, her hand still in his. "You've got no reason to stay. No thrill, no chaos, just us." Leo's heart pounded, the weight of her words settling over him. He looked at Mira, chasing fireflies in the grass, then back at Lyra, her white hair catching the sunlight, her curves a vision he couldn't shake. "You're wrong, Blue," he said, his voice soft but sure. "You and the kid, you're the best kind of chaos, and I'm not going anywhere." Her smile was radiant, and she stepped closer, her hand sliding up his chest, her touch igniting a fire he'd long buried. "Good," she whispered, her lips inches from his, "because I'm not done with you either." Mira's laughter broke the moment, and they both laughed, the tension easing into something warm and real. "Come on, Mr. Leo," Mira called, waving them over. "Let's build a house." Leo took Lyra's hand, their fingers intertwining, and they walked toward Mira, the stars above Nethuria a silent witness to their new beginning. The heart of Zerathia hummed in the distance, a guardian of their future, and Leo knew, for the first time in years, that he'd found something worth fighting for, a home, a family, and a love that burned brighter than any star. And so, Leo, Lyra, and Mira found their home among Nethuria's stars, their bond a beacon of hope in the cosmic dark. I loved crafting this tale of love, betrayal, and epic battles. It's a wild ride that shows humanity's unstoppable spirit. What did you think of Leo's reckless charm or Lyra's fiery heart? Drop your thoughts below. Thank you, Space Cadets, for joining us on this galactic adventure. Smash that like, hit subscribe, comment, and share. Your support fuels more epic stories. Until next time, keep chasing the stars.